Welcome to Club Soda's Mindful Drinking Festival. We're online, global, and as always, absolutely free. Hi, I'm Drew, and I'm one of the co-founders of Club Soda.
And I'm Laura, the other co-founder of Club Soda. We help you change your drinking in ways that help you live well. So whether you're looking to cut down, stop for a bit, or quit, you can find what you need from podcasts and books and courses on joinclubsoda.com. This festival, we've brought you an amazing lineup from over 100 people from across the world.
And our programme this time really is global.
Every day starts down under with me, Sarah. As well as organising the festival in Australia, I spend my time looking for alcohol-free alternatives and tips for people who choose not to drink, but who still want to live a social, fun and adventurous life.
And I'll be wrapping up each day here in the States. I'm Amanda, your US festival host and coordinator, and I'm also a mindset coach who helps women change their relationship with alcohol so that they can start living their most authentic life.
Each day with a rolling programme of inspirational panels, conversations, social events, and opportunities to discover new low and low alcohol drinks.
So whether you want inspiration to change your drinking,
Or to connect with other people,
or you want to discover and enjoy a new low and no alcohol drink,
The Mindful Drinking Festival is for you.
cheers!
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 cheers.
Chris.
I can see we're live, but I can't see myself on a camera. So I hope Drew's going to sort that out. I'll say hello and welcome to everybody to our session, What to Drink When You're Not Drinking Wine.
Hi, Chris.
I'm Christine Parkinson.
Hi, Chris. James Morgan here, and looking forward to talking about some nice drinks today.
Okay, something's gone.
Just hope we can see you at some point. Chris, have you have a look at the message from Drew in the private chat? He's giving you some. No. Oh,
Hello.
hello.
I'm back.
Great. Good to see you.
Right. Yeah, good to see you. I don't know what went wrong there. Anyway, let's get on. James, I don't know what you've said, so if you carry on.
I haven't said much. I was just looking forward to seeing you, Chris. So, and looking forward to trying some drinks.
Yeah. So I think it's worth saying how we came to be doing this session. We worked together a few years ago on a project to develop something called the Orchard List, which was a no and low alcoholic drink list for a major restaurant group, Hakkasan. And I think it's fair to say that at the time we had the biggest challenge with drinks to replace wine. It was really difficult. And it was particularly hard because we had a fantastic wine list running at the same time. So this session is very close to our heart, and we really want to share with you our solution, which was not just to look at de-alcoholised wines, and in fairness, there's far better ones now, but to look at other products which fill the wine space and can be part of wine drinking.
Exactly. As you say, Chris, we didn't list any non-alcoholic wines on the Orchard List because there simply wasn't anything of good enough quality at the time. Instead, we listed products like Kombucha, cold brew tea. We had some unfermented grape juices and various other things that we found worked very well with food, particularly the food at Hakkasan.
But thankfully, the situation is better now. So we're going to start today. We've got 8 products we're going to talk you through. We're going to start with de-alcoholised wine. And I think it's best to start with a definition of what that is. these are products that actually start out as wine and then go through processes to remove the alcohol.
That's right. There's two processes that can be used, or two main processes. There's several actually, but the two main processes are spinning cone technology, which is uses vacuum distillation and displacement of the liquid in order to capture the aromas and reintroduce them to the wine after the alcohol's been removed. And the other method, main method, is through a filtration technique, usually reverse osmosis being the most common. They have different pros and cons, both techniques, and winemakers have varying degrees of success with them.
Yeah, so we've got 4 products here today that weren't available when we did our list. And I think tasting these, bear in mind that the challenge for the winemaker is to carry across the flavour and texture, because that can get lost when the alcohol goes. And here are 4 drinks that have really done that. So our first one, James, do you want to introduce Edenvale?
Yes, so first today we're trying is the Edenvale Sparkling Cuvée, which hopefully you can see that there. So an Australian wine, Southeast Australia, I believe. It's a blend from various regions, predominantly Semillon, I understand. It's de-alcoholised and it's made with the spinning cone technology. So 94% of de-alcoholized wine, and then they add 6% of concentrated grape juice back into the blend.
Yeah, and I think that's really given it a lift, because it has a nice fizz, has lovely grapey flavours, appley, quite tropical. It's got a citrus edge to it. Really pleasant, definitely worth putting in a sparkling wine glass. And I could see this working well with, well, more or less anything you'd have sparkling wine with, you know, maybe seafood, shellfish, that kind of thing.
Yeah, definitely.
And that little bit of sweetness from the grape juice would make it work with spicy food as well. Yeah, so that's a really good place to start. I think that's new to the market here as well.
I believe so. And they have a lot more wines available in Australia. So hopefully we'll see those in the UK soon as well. Next up, shall we move on to the next one?
Yeah, absolutely. Here we go. Thompson and Scott Naughty. I love that name. It's
a great name, isn't it? And Thompson and Scott produce a low-calorie alcoholic prosecco as well, called Thompson and Scott. But they also produce the Naughty,
which is Chardonnay.
Sorry, Chris?
Which is Chardonnay, sparkling Chardonnay.
Which is 100% Chardonnay.
Yeah, really great. Alcohol free. And it's also organic and vegan, which is a really nice thing to see. This is, I mean, it's very similar looking in the glass to the first wine. Really, I don't know if you can see in my glass, a really nice, smooth, sloppy bubbles. And they've actually managed to give it quite a biscuity note, which is, you know, what you'd be looking for.
Get that Chardonnay character.
Yeah, definitely. It's quite impressive. And I honestly think you could serve this, you know, to a lot of guests and they wouldn't realise that it wasn't, you know, an alcoholic drink.
I agree.
And, you know, the presentation is great as well. They've gone for a sort of champagne type presentation, but, you know, with a nice modern label. And the name is just brilliant, Naughty.
Yeah.
Love it, love it, love it, love it. Okay.
Next up, we have a still wine, actually.
Yeah, we do.
So we're going to try the Lindeman's Semillon Chardonnay, alcohol-free.
I think it's fair to say that I find that still wines are harder for producers to make without alcohol than sparkling wines, because you haven't got that texture from the bubbles and that, you know, that generally kind of uplifting thing that you get with bubbles.
Absolutely. So, I agree, because the alcohol provides texture as well, doesn't it? So certainly, you know, contributes to the mouthfeel, and the carbonation, you know, helps to hide that absence of alcohol.
Yeah, yeah. So this is, I mean, it's no coincidence we've got more sparkling wines here today than we have still alcohol-free wines. But Lindemans have really made an effort on this. They've got sparkling, they've got red, and this white. This is a Semillon Chardonnay, and it's really aiming to be like, you know, a classic Australian Sem Chard blend. So you know, they've got a lot to live up to, because it's you know, it's a well-known style. I love the colour.
They get that nice lemony Semillon character that I grew up with, being Australian.
Yeah, you're a really hard critic for this wine, I think. I tell you what impresses me with this. Chardonnay, so wine buffs will know that Chardonnay has a real texture, a kind of a silky texture in the mouth. It's very distinctive. And actually, this wine has it. They've done a really good job with it. So it's citrusy, but it's not thin. And being thin is, of course, one of the big risks when you're making de-alcoholized wines. So, yeah, impressed.
That's so much better than the wines we were tasting a few years ago.
Things have really moved on, haven't they?
Yeah.
I think if we'd found wines like these first three back when we were at Hakkasan, you know, the list would have been much easier to write. But this is great. Lindemans themselves, I think they recommend it with chicken salad, but I think this would go with lots of dishes. It's actually got enough oomph. It's got enough flavours.
Yeah, it could work with grilled meats, grilled barbecued chicken and pork, perhaps.
Yeah, sort of. Yeah, plain grilled meats. Yeah, it could actually, definitely. Pretty much anything you would drink a Sem Chard with, this would work.
Yeah.
So yeah, nice. Okay.
Next we have something that's close to my new home. This is produced in Cornwall.
Yeah.
Wildlife Botanicals, and this is somewhat of a hybrid, in that it's a de-alcoholized wine that's then blended with botanicals, which, you know, purportedly have health benefits. So things like lemon balm and ashwagandha, some rose and damiana. Well, you definitely get that herbaceous floral character.
Wow, that is so interesting. One thing I just wanted to say, that this is this product looks beautiful. You showed the bottle, but the bottle comes in a box with this amazing kind of sleeve on it, and I could really picture myself taking this, you know, if I was going to someone's house, taking this. And then on the front it says bubbles with benefits. It's 0.5% alcohol. Taste a new kind of wildlife. Yeah, it's different from a conventional sparkling wine.
Exactly.
It's
a different
kind
drink.
of a new category, isn't it?
Exactly. But you can imagine it working with food, and that floral character. It's certainly dry, but it has a very sort of sweet aroma from the rose and damiana, I guess.
Yeah.
And that would lend itself well. I mean, I've got antipasto down here, but it certainly worked with shellfish, but also I think with light curries and things like that, something with a little bit like Asian, Southeast Asian flavors, a little bit of spice could work really well as well.
Yeah. Looking at these four products, these which are all de-alcoholized wines, and this fourth one being a bit of a hybrid between a straightforward de-alcoholized wine and something that's been created differently. I think they're all, the nice thing is they're all good, but they're all very different. The Eden Vale's a kind of very classical fizz. The Naughty's got that biscuity note. It feels quite high end actually. The Lindeman's is a real kind of a wine you could drink every day, except it's alcohol free. I could see the Wildlife Botanicals working as a nice aperitif.
Yes,
actually, with those extra flavours. Yeah. It's really good. Love it. So this part of the category, if you like, is the quality's got massively better. So if you are drinking mindfully, and a couple of years ago you had tried de-alcoholised wines and perhaps thought, they weren't quite good enough, I think it's definitely time to go back and try again.
I agree, and even if you're not completely abstemious, I think there's space for wines like this where you might have a glass of something de-alcoholized to begin with, or at midpoint through a meal, while on the same occasion that you might have a glass of wine.
Yeah, absolutely. You could definitely mix and match these with wine with alcohol in, and you wouldn't feel that big sort of step down or back up to the wine, which is really good. But then we get into some interesting territory, which is drinks that are alternatives to wine. And we lined up 4 very varied products here. And I think it's not always, well understood that these are drinks that can do the job of wine. So, I mean, how are these products are typically made? They're not fermented at all, or some of them are.
Some of them are.
Yeah.
We've got 50-50 here. 2 fermented drinks and 2 non, but using different kinds of fermentation. One is using traditional fermentation, as I understand it. I know that some people from Binary are listening in, so maybe they can.
Hello, Binary.
And but I'm not sure of their de-alcoholization process, but I'm fairly sure it's fermented traditionally, but with wine yeast instead. But we're going to start with a kombucha, which is a different kind of fermentation, and we certainly produce kombuchas with help from real kombucha to produce things for Hakkasan to our recipes. But this is a different one. There's 2 schools of thought with kombucha. There's probably many, but two main schools of thought in terms of the products that are available to consumers. Things that you can noticeable difference between products that are tea focused, or where they highlight the quality of the main ingredient, which is tea, and then there are kombuchas that are flavored. So that some of them are fermented soft drinks, if you like, whereas other drinks are more focused towards the more quality end of the spectrum, and you'd be looking at those kind of products to be drinking with food.
Yeah, and
go on.
Go on, James. I was going to say that just picking up on your point there, there's typically the ones which are flavoured will carry the name of the flavour. So you'll see, lemon and ginger kombucha or raspberry kombucha. And the ones which are focusing on the tea, like this one, the Kombucha, it tells you it's made from sencha green tea. So you'll have, a sense of the type of tea, and that should come through when you taste
absolutely.
it. Although this one, again, is a bit hybrid, isn't it?
It is a hybrid. It's a hybrid because it has awareness of the importance of the quality of the tea and attention to detail on how that tea is brewed. But then, because the aim of the producer is to make a drink that works with food, that's their explicit aim, they have added fruit concentrates from gooseberry and quince in order to bring some of the similar characteristics from wines like a Sauvignon Blanc or a Muscadet, perhaps. So, but only tiny amounts in order to get those fruit notes coming through.
Yeah. This is it's a British drink. It's comes from Brighton, I think. So
that's right.
South Coast drink. Let's give it a try. See, it has that lovely nose. It has, you can tell the gooseberry and quince are there, but it has that kind of sappy fermentation tea kind of appetizing savouriness to it.
And the mouthfeel from the tea, it's definitely a green tea mouthfeel. And that centre actually has quite a really thick, viscous texture. Particularly sencha, I think is that. Sencha
is a very premium Japanese tea, isn't it? And it's really delicious. It's maybe not everybody knows how kombucha is made, and I think it's really worth knowing. It's a really fascinating thing because it has an alcoholic fermentation in one sense, doesn't it? But the SCOBY. Tell us what SCOBY is, James. You're the expert.
Okay. So I've seen a couple of questions come up, which we'll answer in a moment. But the SCOBY is a symbiotic culture of bacteria and yeast, which is what's the culture that's used to make kombucha. So the production method is you brew tea, you add a sugar to it to make it a sweet tea. No matter whether you want a dry product or not, you need that sugar in there to feed the culture. You add the SCOBY and some starter liquid, which is basically just a concentrated kombucha, and then that the yeasts will digest. The yeast in the culture digests the sugars and turns it into alcohol, and then the bacteria in the culture then digests the alcohol and turns it into acetic acid, or vinegar. So the trick with brewing good kombucha is to get that balance in the sweet tea right, so that you don't end up with a drink that's too acidic at the end. Because if you have too much sugar to begin with, you'll get a higher rate of higher amount of alcohol and then subsequently acetic acid in the drink. So it's hard to get that balance right. And lots of the flavor drinks that we're talking about, which are more like soft drinks, actually use the flavors to mask, what's pretty much just a sour, not particularly pleasant drink.
But the good the kombuchas that have been made to be kind of high end and to work, instead of a sparkling wine, they're actually a really good alternative because they have that crisp acidity that you would get in something like a champagne, and they have texture from the tea as well as the bubbles, but also from the fermentation. And you've got critically that kind of fermentation character, which is present in wine, but it's not present in something like a soft drink. So
no, that's right. Let me just answer a couple of these questions, Chris.
Sure.
Got someone asking about the caffeine content in the kombucha. I'm sorry, I don't know. I don't think it's on the label, but
it's not. No.
I suggest that you might want to contact them. And Fenella, someone is asking about what brand it is. It's Bucha. Boucha.
There we go. Bucha kombucha.
Okay.
And it actually has that lovely thing, sip, share, pair. So it's very much
exactly.
And it's
going to go great with a lot of food, I think.
It tastes quite like a Sauvignon Blanc, doesn't it? With its some of the characteristics it's
absolutely
got. But there's you mentioned beer a moment ago at Binary Botanicals, and this is our next product. And this might surprise people,
Right.
because, you know, this is a session about alternatives to wine, not a session about beer. But this is not an ordinary beer, not just because it hasn't got alcohol, but it's been made with wine yeast, hasn't it? And it's,
That's right.
it's kind of targeted at being like a sparkling, you know, like a prosecco or something. So it's
Oh, Chris,
light.
I've got an answer to the caffeine question in the kombucha.
Oh, cool.
Someone was asking.
Well done.
Thank you, Bucha. It is 7 to 10 milligrams. It's 2/3 of the original caffeine content from the tea. Very low, very low. Okay. And someone's asking if we have some
Fantastic.
alcohol-free wine suggestions, red wine suggestions. We're coming up to something that's a suitable replacement to that later on. But
Yeah.
first, the binary.
Yeah. Well, like I say, the Lindemans, Lindemans do make a red, but we've got something else to offer for a red later on in the session. Yeah, Binary Botanicals.
So it has quite a different aroma than you'd expect from most beers. Lots of pear character on the nose. I think one of the interesting things about their fermentation process, Chris, using the wine yeast, but they also ferment with the hop leaves, not just the buds. So the leaves are in the fermentation, which I think probably brings it a little bit more of an acidic note, or more acidity to the.
And this is I love this, hop leaves sourced in the English countryside.
It's quite unlike, we're used to drinking, craft beers, lots of very hoppy pale ales these days. And this is not that, and nor is it a lager. It is somewhere, it's quite different character. And I can see why, they put it forward as something to drink with food, because it's much more light-bodied in terms of mouthfeel, not as much, not as foamy as a beer, most beers, but still got that lovely hoppy character.
I'm back.
You're back. So, really worth having a look at Binary.
Did you mention that they recommend serving it in a
wine glass?
Wine flute,
yeah.
and it really works. Yeah, it really works. Treated like a sparkling wine. It's so delicate, isn't it? It's really lovely. Did you talk about food matches?
I didn't get, as I said, you can see it working well with food, but I didn't talk about specific matches. So, it's going to be great with fish and chips. I had fish and chips last night, and this would have been, very welcome. I think any grilled light dishes, grilled fish would be fantastic. I can also imagine it working well with asparagus and
because it's got that slight greenness. I think as well, it would work with cheesy dishes and vegetable dishes, vegetable lasagna, that kind of thing. It would cut through the cheese, but at the same time, I think it would work with vegetables and cheese. So
I agree.
It's very nice. Yeah. So don't dismiss beer out of hand. This is not really a beer. This is something a bit special, a bit different. Cool.
Yeah. Okay, next. Okay,
Well, I think this is where we do talk about fermentation or not fermentation, because we kept mentioning through what we've said so far that fermentation is important because it adds texture and weight, and it gives extra flavors to a product through the action of the yeast. But there are some really sensational non-fermented products, in this space, and I think it's worth talking about when is something an alternative to wine, and when is it just a soft drink? Because this is not always clear. People ask me this, and the products we're going to show you now are definitely not soft drinks. They're definitely alternatives to alcohol. Do you want to say something about that?
Yeah, I do. I think the thing about, the thing that separates them is, complexity is a key factor. Things that are more things that we're considering work with food have a level of complexity that soft drink doesn't have. Soft drinks tend to be quite simple, often one-dimensional, or certainly not multi-dimensional in their flavor profile. Simple and refreshing, and usually quite sweet, and they're not complementary to food because of that simplicity, but sometimes also because they just overwhelm the flavors of the food. If you think about juices, for example, anything that's not anything, but most things that are juice based or just pure juices might be too much for most foods or many foods. Orange juice, for example, is very hard to have with a meal. And soft drinks are, a simpler products. These products that we're talking about have attention to detail in terms of the sourcing of the ingredients, using good quality ingredients and blending them successfully and skillfully to achieve multiple layers of flavor and things that will, you will come back to over the course of a meal. So that's what we're looking for.
Yeah, and typically for non-fermented products in this space, you're going to find, as you said, high quality ingredients. There's going to be techniques like infusion, possibly distillation of botanicals, and blend. Lots of blending is often part of it. And it can surprise people. We talked about tea earlier, its role in kombucha. But our next couple of products are teas. They are sparkling cold brew teas. And, the UK, at the very least, we're a nation of tea drinkers. But this is something different. So if you haven't thought about, tea as potentially an alternative to alcohol, there are products now which definitely fit as alternatives to wine. And we've got two products now from a brand called Saicho. So there we go. I've got the Hojicha. What have you got?
I've got some Darjeeling.
Hojicha and Darjeeling. Okay. So these... they come in 500ml bottles. Actually, it's worth mentioning, apart from the Binary, everything has been in wine bottles, apart from credit back to the Kombucha, which was in a 500ml bottle, which is a lovely size. If you, particularly if you're, mixing, perhaps your mindful drinking is part of where you'd have some alcohol and some not. These are 500ml, so again, you've got an option here to have these and perhaps have something else, and they're a lovely size for sharing. But cold brew tea, how does this work instead of wine?
Well, tea is the other product, the other drink that has a real long history, and where provenance, production, and brewing techniques and how you serve it all play a big part in how the drink is consumed and received by the consumer. So we know that there are fantastic teas that are to be brewed hot. The problem with tea, putting it into a bottle usually, is that it's really susceptible to mold and bacteria. So getting a good quality brewed product with a fine tea is a rarity, certainly in Europe. There's a few available in Asia, but not that many high end. You'd be surprised, maybe surprised, but Saicho certainly, recognises the possibilities of tea, and they've done a really good job with these. They've got a range of 3, and we're trying 2 of those today.
Yeah, and I think tea, again, people may not realise how much tea has in common with wine. So obviously it's a natural product, wine made from grapes, but tea made from leaves. And the leaves themselves undergo sort of various processes which add a lot of flavour to the end result. But tea has tannins. So you all know about, tannin in the teapot. But tannin is a key component of wine, particularly red wine or orange wines. It's that drying sensation in the mouth, makes your mouth pucker a little bit, and it adds a huge amount to the experience of drinking a wine. So tea is pretty much the only thing I can think of which has natural tannins to sort of rival those with wine. But for me, these are very, I'm drinking the Hojicha at the moment. So Hojicha, well, you're a tea expert, James. Tell us about Hojicha.
Well, Hojicha is, relatively new in the world of tea. It was only first produced in the early 20th century, but it's Japanese green tea that is roasted. So someone came up with a clever solution of what to do with all of the extra twigs and leaves, and they roasted it, and it's become one of Japan's favourites. Following sencha, I think it's the next most popular tea consumed in Japan. Quite different character, and although it's brown, it's still considered a green tea because of the way that the leaves are processed before they are roasted. So it doesn't go through any oxidization prior to the roasting, which is what makes it a green tea technically. But in the roasting brings out really lovely umami character, and lots of savory notes of nuts and chestnuts and mushrooms, seaweed, and quite woody, earthy character in the typically, whether it's a hot or a cold brew tea.
I think this would work with the same kind of foods that a big red wine with lots of oak would work with. Although it's different flavours, it hits the same spot. So, would certainly work with any very savoury food.
Absolutely.
Anything with mushrooms.
I can really imagine this with a mushroom risotto or, any big braised meat dish.
The Darjeeling is a little bit more delicate, but we're still talking quite an emphatic flavour here. Still talking plenty of tannin, and very, very elegant, which is kind of the signature of Darjeeling anyway. And this would be, I think this would work. This kind of crosses over. This would work where oaked white wines might work, but also where some lighter reds might work. So, grilled salmon, grilled pork kind of thing.
Exactly.
So
it has a nice character of like white burgundy kind of character, doesn't it? It's that sort of Montrachet sort of.
Yeah, it does. It does.
Buttery mouthfeel.
Okay, so I think it's time to move on to our last drink. And somebody was asking about red wine. This is a product, I don't know if you'll have come across this. 9 Elms number 18. Okay.
I know it pretty well.
You know it pretty well, James. Yeah. James has done some work with this product. And this is a Velven. What's a Velven?
So it's a good question. A Velven is a drink that's designed to complement food that is not fermented. It's never been fermented, so it's never been a wine, and it's a blend of fruit and other botanical elements blended to add complexity and give it all of the things it needs in order to work at a particular moment in the meal.
Yeah, it's just kind of berries and botanicals, isn't it?
That's right.
Infused tinctures, that kind of thing. And as you can see, I mean, it's red. It looks like wine. It's got quite a big character. So I've got this in
a beautiful bottle.
Fab bottle. I'm drinking this out of the same kind of glass that I would use for a big Shiraz or a Rioja, something like that.
Exactly the same glass.
Same glass. Whoa,
Same glass.
Okay, so
Rydell Shiraz glass. Yeah.
Yeah, this gives a very clear message of and yet it isn't wine, but it is doing something very similar. And it has, right from the start, this is astonishingly complex. You know, we talked about how fermentation brings complexity, but this is bringing complexity without any fermentation at all. Really sort of sweet and savoury notes on the nose. And you can get the herbal character. But
lots of herbs up front, isn't it? And people laugh when I say this, but I always get a tomato leaf character it's one of the first things I smell. And and then also there's a bit of peppermint, black pepper. Yeah. Definitely some savoury herbal notes there, but then underlying spice like anise and a bit of cinnamon and some, again, the pepper and then you get the fruit. This lovely plummy character, cherry.
Absolutely. And it's really long, it really keeps going. It has, it's quite rich in the mouth, quite full-bodied, plenty of texture. And absolutely something that you could drink, with char-grilled meats, spicy foods. I could see it with a Sunday roast if you go, or a nut roast, anything like that.
Absolutely. It's gonna... I know that it works really well with anything char-grilled. Char-grilled vegetables are great. Char-grilled meats, also with charcuterie, perfect with cured beef. That kind of thing, and works with a lot of cheese as well. But has a really lovely bright color too, sort of a garnet, and it's nice and clear, similar to a Grenache, I think.
I mean, it's funny you said that. I was thinking, particularly with those herbal notes, it reminds me of the Southern Rhone wines, which tend to be made from Grenache, that garrigue, herbs, that sort of thing, but also a woody note to it. And I think the thing that's fascinating here is that this is perhaps the most wine-like of the alternatives to wine that we've looked at today. And yet it has the least in common with what wine is and how wine is made. And I think that's really something to, I think that's the take home from this session. If you remember anything, remember two things. I think that non-alcoholic, de-alcoholized wines are coming into their own now. There are some really good ones to try, lots more than we've had today. But there are some sensational alternatives, and you can go beyond de-alcoholized wine. And honestly, if you were drinking something like this, or if you were drinking you could have the Binary, you could have this, and people would kind of not be aware that you weren't having sort of Prosecco followed by a big Chateauneuf de Pape or something, because that's the way they come across.
Yeah, I agree. I think we're running out of time, Chris.
I think we're about at the end. Were there any other questions that came through?
I think we've got most of them, and some of the producers have answered questions on our behalf, which is helpful.
Oh, cool.
But I think it's been a good session, and let's do it again.
Yeah, absolutely. So hopefully we'll do it again next year, maybe in person, and there'll be even more drinks to have a look at. And all the companies whose drinks we showed today, kind of well done. It's great that the wine space is really filling up for mindful drinkers. So cool.
Fantastic.
Okay, thanks, goodbye everybody. Bye, James.